Hi, everybody. I hope you are having a good week. So, this week, in addition to reading about Kristen Arola's rhetoric of Christmas cards and family and infertility, you did a reading about remediation. So this is taking us back to the tech and media aspect of our class. So remediation is a slightly dated reading and theory, but I think it offers us a lot of interesting things to think about as we move into these newer media and technology. And I think it's maybe a helpful way to think about how we got to social media and where we might go with social media. And remediation, you have been kind of talking about it already. You just didn't have that term. So last week you were talking about phones, and that's kind of the same thing. So remediation is thinking about repurposing or refashioning how we receive information. So the key to this component is that the information does not change. It's just how we receive or experience the information. That is what changes. So this also relates a lot to the medium is the massage, where McLaren was saying the media is more important than the content. And that's in some ways is because the content might not change, but how we're going to get it does. And that's really what's important. So remediation is really just kind of taking this idea and blowing it up a little bit and just giving us some new ways to think about some things. So one example of remediation that we can think about is how we receive the news. So originally, we got a newspaper once a day. It was typically black and white. You had to wait until you got home in the afternoon to read what was happening in the world. And then eventually we started getting televisions, and we could see the news a couple more times a day. And when we think about it in terms of multimodality, we were able to see these moving images that kind of gave us a better sense of what was happening in the world. Next, we got the advent of the 24-hour news network. So we didn't have to wait to certain times of the day. We could see news all the time, anytime we wanted. If anything was breaking, we could know about it almost immediately if we had a TV nearby. And then eventually these 24-hour news channels started bringing in all of these different kind of modes and conventions. So here in this picture down in the left-hand corner, you're seeing 3 different people taking up the screen talking. In the right-hand corner of that image, you see a live broadcast. It looks like a White House meeting. We talk about there's the ticker tape down at the bottom that's constantly rolling new news that's happening, updates. You see the NASDAQ, the time. So again, we're getting the news, but we're just getting so much more here. It is being thrown at us in all of these different ways from different people, from different locations. And then we have the internet. So again, we can have news all day long. And again, it's going to give us so much more news. It's going to give us world news, local news, entertainment news, science news, money news. And again, it's going to be kind of breaking, right? And you don't have to even have a computer or a TV nearby. You can just have your phone to look at the news. Many of these 24-hour news stations or even your local news station have apps now that you can download onto your phone, and get the news whenever. You can get those push notifications. So this is a really great form of remediation because it's totally showing we're still getting the news. We're still getting these things that are of interest to the world and to us generally, but we're able to get them in all of these different ways. From a print, tangible newspaper to an app on your phone. And I just wanted to take your attention to, if you kind of notice the web page on the bottom right and the 24-hour news station screenshot on the left, they really have started kind of taking their own conventions. While you can't navigate a news channel, you can kind of see that there's all sorts of information in different ways kind of being thrown at you. So I always think this is a really good example of how to think about remediation. So the issue with being mediated is, according to Bolter and Grusin, and we're going to kind of trouble this idea in a little bit, is that we want more media. We want these remediated experiences. They give us instant access. They make us feel like we are there. But we don't want these experiences to feel mediated. We want it to feel authentic. So again, we're going to problemize that or trouble that a little bit in a second, but that is kind of one of the things that Bolter and Grusin are kind of talking about in terms of remediation and audiences and getting that information. So there's sort of two parts that are incorporating this idea of we want to be mediated, but we want to feel authentic. And so the first part is immediacy. And that is where the information or the media is trying to erase the aspect of the medium and focus on what is being represented. So they give the example, the picture on the left is an example from the article, the reading. And so the kind of aspect or the way this painting is painted is so it seems as though we are in that room. We are looking down this hallway. So while this is a painting, we're not necessarily thinking about, that it is a painting. It feels like we're there. I think a really cool example of this is actually in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and that's the image on the right-hand side. It is called Staircase Group, the portrait of Raphael Peale and Titian Ramsey Peale I by Charles Wilson Peale. So this painting is on that wall. There's a little stair, an actual stair right there at the bottom. And if you were just walking by, you might think that these people are really there, that is a real staircase. So in that case, this perspective of this painting is really kind of takes you out of the fact that it is a painting. It really seems as though it is there. And so that's what Bolter and Grusin, the authors of Remediation, mean when they say immediacy. We're not really aware of the media, just the way it's presented. Now, on the other side, and is probably the way we really think about media now, is this hypermediacy. It celebrates the medium. It acknowledges multiple points of view. When we acknowledge it is the medium, we acknowledge it as a medium, it becomes authentic. So they use, one of the examples that they talk about in the article is how it celebrates the medium, or the kind of design aspect of it. So here you can see the manuscript, and it's very ornamental. It really has, big letters, these frames, these colors used. So it really brings the words to life here. Another example is this greetings from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm very close to Ann Arbor, so hello from Michigan. But here we're kind of, again, we are celebrating all of these different aspects, all of these different things that are in Ann Arbor, but it's in this very designed graphic image. These are some, I think, newer ways to think about hypermediacy. So when we go to concerts, we rarely see, depending on how close you are to the stage, the person performing, the artist performing. They have a giant screen up, and usually there's multiple giant screens so everybody can see it. Last year, I went to a Neil Diamond concert, and we were so far up. I basically watched the concert through the screen. That's how I saw Neil Diamond. But I was able to go to the show. I could see a little black speck of him in his clothes at the bottom of the stage. But what I really got to see and how I really got to enjoy the experience is through through the screen. Again, on the other side of this, on the right-hand picture, when people go to concerts now or any sort of sporting events, they look at through their phone. They take images, they take video, and that helps us really think about, or not helps us think about, but that's how we enjoy things now, right? If we go to a sporting event, if we go to a concert, if we go to Longwood Gardens or a museum, if we can take pictures, we're always taking pictures and we're always kind of looking at things through our cameras. That is a more current version of hypermediacy. So again, I think this really goes into how we live our everyday lives. We watch and this is my idea, my kind of concept of this, is that whenever I watch any major event on television, it's an award show, a sporting event, maybe a television series finale, I always have Twitter open. It's like a second screen to me. So even at home, my experiences are remediated. We can think about simulation games. And I think a lot of people think of those as the kind of first-person shooter games. But that's how the Army kind of gets people, the military gets people in to think about joining. There's other games too. There's this thing called Second Life where you have an avatar and you go from experience to experience. Thinking about traveling and sharing pictures from wherever I go. Online libraries. A lot of times you can get, museums have online information. So this kind of information that we're getting, it's completely experienced through media. And not everybody does that, but it's a lot of how we do it, right? So we look at everything we do, and I think that cell phone, you know, we post pictures on Facebook or Instagram. We might share a link to where we've been on Twitter, but we're always mediating and remediating these experiences that we have. So my question, and I'm going to ask you to kind of answer it down in our discussion post area, is that we live in a totally mediated society. As I just said, it seems like everything we do, we watch TV on our phones, we go to concerts or sporting events and can watch through giant screens. We read on electric devices. So my question is, and this kind of goes back to that dated aspect of remediation, is does the dichotomy of immediacy versus hyperreal exist anymore? Could their definition of hyperreal actually be our new sense of immediacy? Oh, I'm going to rewrite that down below, and I'm going to ask you to answer it. I'm going to give you another little question about remediation. If you have questions, go ahead and write them below. I know we kind of walked through this pretty quickly, but if you have any questions, as I said, please let me know, and we can talk through this again if you have questions next week. But I hope that you all are having a great week, and I will see you next week. Thanks, guys.